Hey everyone. Real quick, before we get into the active events of Secret 6 issues 35 and 36, our final two issues, I wanted to check in on some standing business. As I was editing last week's episode, it occurred to me that I swept right past Ragdoll's new costume design. I described it, sure, but I didn't talk about what that change meant. And it does mean something. In the world of comic books, a costume is a character's identity. It conveys who they are and what they can do, and changing it means changing their character. There are three major changes to Ragdoll's appearance: the loss of his mask, the loss of the clown theming, and the addition of hair. I don't believe I ever mentioned this at all, but Ragdoll is bald. He has a few Charlie Brown-ish strings of hair left on his head, but for the most part he's bald. I actually don't think he even has eyebrows. There was hair attached to his Ragdoll mask, but it looked more like yarn than hair. I believe that this was a design nod to the Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls, perhaps the most famous Ragdolls in pop culture. But since losing his mask, Ragdoll should also have lost his hair, but he has hair now. It is thick and tangled, either a very dark red or a deep black, and it seems to have the same consistency as his previous hair. So whatever Lady Blaze did in giving him this new look, it appears to have allowed for hair growth. The loss of the clown theming is outright stated by Lady Blaze in Secret 6 issue 34. Doll is no longer simply a clown, but a terror, a threat, something to be feared. And this new look certainly backs that up. The leather waders, the visible scars, the long arms and bandaged face. Ragdoll looks like something that should be hunting teenagers at a summer camp on the Sci-Fi Channel, not a super criminal. He isn't fun anymore, he's frightening, and I like the subtlety here. Because honestly, Ragdoll has always been a threat, dangerous and unhinged, stating disturbing things with an air of levity, and we've all laughed at him because that's how he looks. He's a clown, not a danger hiding who he really is beneath that costume. Ragdoll might be okay with who and what he is, but he also knew that society would not be. So he literally put on an act that would protect him. In coming to grips with his recent growth, though, as a person, Ragdoll now has less reason to hide. Which is why he loses the mask in favor of bandages. I've mentioned before that the Ragdoll mask represents a shield to Peter Merkel Jr. It's a defensive mechanism that he created to survive his family. But, after befriending Parademon and Black Alice, after fighting the Six and fighting for the Six, Peter has a new family. He even says so at the end of The Darkest House as he gives Scandal the Get Out of Hell Free card. And this family accepts Ragdoll, Peter, as he is. Flaws and all. So he doesn't need to hide who he is anymore. He can take off the mask. Which isn't to say that he's totally comfortable. Peter was horribly hurt by his biological family. While those wounds are healing, they aren't done yet, so he remains bandaged. And yeah, it's totally creepy looking too, so that's great as well. But Ben, why are you talking about Ragdoll's costume change at all? We have 2 issues left here. This is the last episode on them. Why not just get on with the show? Well, part of it is because that's what this show is about, talking about the comics. Part of it is simply acknowledging Ragdoll's growth, Simone's skill as an author, and Jim Calafiore's skill as an artist. And the final part of it will actually tie into my overall thoughts on these last 6 issues, from the start of The Darkest House to our ending in issue 36. We may have 3 different stories here, but I have one theory behind it all. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown episode Secret 6.19. Caution to the wind. Issue 35 opens with Bane jogging through the woods that surround the House of Secrets. Winter has fallen, and snow covers the ground, but it doesn't seem to bother Bane. He's dressed in sweats and an A-shirt, and has no shoes on at all. We also see, as he runs by, a new set of implants for introducing Venom, his power-enhancing drug, into his system. This, right off the bat, signals a huge change in Bane. While he originally used venom to induce rage and increase his strength, Bane eventually decided that his reliance on it made him weak. Now, he's willing to use it again. And that is an ominous thing indeed. Thomas Blake, out on a morning hunt, startles Bane. He points out Bane's clothing and implants, but the big man shrugs off both questions initially. Bane doesn't really care about how others view him, so he doesn't want to elaborate. But as Blake walks away, Bane calls him back. He has two opposing strategies in mind, and he needs advice. Blake walks back. Yeah, easy enough. Who's the target? Who else would it be but the detective? Ah, Batman. Blake nods. Okay. He then asks how Bane's fight with Batman went, going so far as to punch Bane, acting as if he was Batman. Blake continues to punch or kick Bane throughout their conversation, but none of it seems to faze him. He just stands there, talking, while Blake does his thing. You see, Bane's trip to hell has caused him to rethink his life. If he is damned, as hell would claim, then whatever rules he's chosen to live by are pointless. Thus, he should live a life he can be proud of, one where he bends a knee to no one. Secondly, his date with Spencer has revealed a shocking lack of control in him, another thing that Bane is proud of. So here he is, surrounded by some of the lamest, broken people that he has ever known, destined for hell and having failed to achieve anything of note. Oh, sure, Bane may have broken Batman's spine once before, but he is, quote, alive and well and surrounded by people who love him. He rules his city like a winged god from the rooftops, unquote. Bane broke Batman physically, but Batman broke Bane emotionally, sending him down this path of huge loserness. And he is done with that. Bane wants to see Batman crushed beneath their boots, their place in the world cemented so firmly that even after death, all will know that Bane crushed everyone who stood against him. Once Bane kinda shifts gears, going from the setup to his pitch, he catches Blake's fist in the palm of his hand. Sure, Blake has been hitting him, but Bane knew that this was not only no threat, but he knew that he could make a point, too. He squeezes Blake's fist, the pain bringing him to a knee. Fighting that pain, Blake asks how Bane would do this. So he hauls Blake up by his Catman-themed jacket that I would totally buy if it was a thing, DC. Hint, hint. Bane explains that Batman's true strength lies in his family. So, they're going to kill them first. Then, they'll kill him. And if Blake really wants to see how Bane's fight with Batman went, then Bane will gladly show him. Then he releases Blake. The Six will follow Blake's lead. Bane knows this. He's seen it in the arcs like Cats in the Cradle. Will he be the world's worst hero, failing in all things, caught in the middle with no allies? Or will he be the world's deadliest free man? Blake massages his hand for a moment. Then he agrees. He's in. This is how to build a character arc. While Bane hasn't been the focus of our past 4 issues, all of those issues have still been affecting him and now add up to a change here. He's been thinking about his trip to hell, he's been thinking about his date with Spencer, and it's all driving him to make the decisions that he's making now. That's some awesome storytelling, and I love it. And I'm intrigued by this not quite a fight with Catman. Because Catman and Bane have always kind of been on opposing sides throughout this series. Catman was willing to ditch Bane in Unhinged, they were initially opposed on freeing the Amazon in Depths, Bane was willing to ditch Catman in Cats in the Cradle, and they were enemies in The Reptile Brain. These two have little love between each other. So Blake doesn't hate Bane or really have a grudge against him, so then why does Blake instigate this confrontation? I think that Blake is literally trying to beat some sense into Bane. When Blake sees the venom set up and Bane kind of brushes off his concerns, he replies, "Fine, you want to juice yourself to death, I'll plug you in. Otherwise, I'm heading back to the house." Then he turns to go to the house. He was concerned for Bane, but the second that Bane questions that concern, he clams up, embarrassed for caring at all. It's some classic alpha male behavior, hiding any kind of concern behind cold dismissal. And all of that is pretty on point, but then Blake is called back by Bane. Now, Bane is reciprocating Blake's concern. But he starts talking about fighting Batman! And that's no swearing, fucking crazy. Bane and Catman are both men's who have faced the Bat before and failed. Utterly. And Batman has defeated every enemy that he's faced. This idea, whatever it could be, is very likely to fail. So, Catman sees Bane regressing into Venom usage and going against an enemy that he likely can't beat. This is kind of stupid, and he knows it. So, he starts punching Bane, trying to remind him of how poorly this went the last time, but Bane will not be dissuaded. This is highlighted by him crushing Blake's hand into submission, winning him over. I also think that there's an element of comparison for Blake, too. He is very similar to Batman, and he is clearly concerned with how they stack up. During his confrontation with Batman during Unhinged, he actively challenges Batman's tracking and fighting skills, so yeah, that's definitely a thing. Blake probably wants to know how he compares to Bats in Bane's eyes, and I don't think that Bane is impressed. Simone works in two small scenes that happen during the Bane-Blake scene. The first features Deadshot and Jeanette in the kitchen, sleeping on the island after having sex. Jeanette wakes up first, then she wakes up Lawton, informing him that death surrounds Bane and Blake. Lawton isn't concerned because, Lawton, and King Shark enters the room. He's got some blubber in the fridge, and sweetly, he's covering his eyes to keep from seeing any of his friends naked. And he's actually naked himself, making no effort to cover his fish stick. This scene reveals nothing really about the people involved. We've seen Jeanette and Lawton do the deed, and Shark's arrival adds nothing other than hilariousness. I think the real thing here is Jeanette's pronouncement of death. She's done this several times before, and it never really adds up to much. While the six have certainly faced death before, none of them have ever died when Jeanette thought that they might. So, while I think that Simone is trying to raise the tension here and maybe heighten the stakes of our story going forward, I don't think that this is a good way to do it. The scene then moves to Scandal's bedroom, where we find she and Knockout in bed. Scandal is just waking up, but Knockout has been awake for a while. Scandal gently touches her shoulder in concern, asking if she couldn't sleep. Knockout explains that while she was in hell, they would come for her when she felt safe. Her body remembers the tortures that her mind is blocking out. And because of that, she doesn't want Scandal to touch her without express permission. Otherwise, she'll rip off the offending limb and beat her to an unrecognizable paste with it. There's no emotion here. Knockout isn't angry. It's just a calm statement of fact from her. After a moment in which Scandal removes her hand, Knockout says that she may be off her temper. Obviously, Knockout is still recovering from her time in hell, which I like. This book is ending in one more issue, but Simone is still focused on a realistic arc featuring a character going through some extreme trauma. She could just rush this, saying that being freed from hell also freed Knockout from the memories of it, but no, we're still treating this arc pretty carefully. I do like the implication that Knockout feels safe with Scandal, though, even if she can't trust that feeling yet. Her speech is chilling and heartbreaking given all that Scandal did to rescue her, but I also appreciate Scandal honoring her request. The second that Knockout finishes, Scandal stops touching her and agrees to her love's terms. That respect and honor is great to see. This scene works a lot better than Jeanette's scene. Having caught up with our cast and established the conceit of this arc, Bane gathers the six to outline his plan. While Bane distracts the Bat, the six will pair up and take down Batman's family, specifically listing Robin, Red Robin, Batgirl, and Huntress. If you're paying attention, that leaves an uneven number of attackers, and Bane says that there will be an eighth man added to the team before they begin the plan. Catman immediately declares Huntress off limits. Wow, this plan is going off the rails real quick. Bane begins to argue, but Catman stands firm. No, Huntress, or he walks, and he'll call the GCPD himself. I'm glad to see that minor relationship continuing to have an impact. Scandal lightly protests their attacks on Robin and Batgirl, as they're both children, but Bane says that in fact they're soldiers. They would not hesitate to stop or imprison them. They are fair targets in his eyes. So, oddly, Scandal doesn't even press the point. Bane then swaps out Huntress for Commissioner Gordon. Who they attack isn't as important as Batman caring about them. Deadshot points out that the Bat family will pull together as soon as one of them goes down. Bane says that their attacks will occur simultaneously to keep them all occupied. So, okay, what kind of intel do the Six have on these people? How are they going to find them? Well, remember that 8th member that Bane mentioned? The rest of the issue deals with, well, I guess you could say recruiting that person. A few hours later, the Six are standing in the woods overlooking a domed white lake house. A huge yacht, like literally as big as the house, sits on the dock nearby. Whoever this person is, they have money. But the Six are upground, which Catman points out means that they can't approach unannounced. Scandal says that the ground is probably mined as well. Neither of these possibilities bothers Bane. They have the moral imperative. They want to be seen. And, regarding the mines, send in the shark. At the mention of his name, King Shark suddenly pays attention. What are we doing? What's happening? He doesn't even care. He's just happy to be needed. Send him in, coach. Scandal takes his hands, saying that they have a special mission just for him. And he bounces in excitement. As she does so, Bane thanks Catman for attacking him that morning. He knows that Catman was attempting to awaken his inner will. It was a stupid thing to do, but he appreciates it nonetheless. Which was definitely a different reading than my take on that scene, obviously. So Catman knew that fighting Batman would require a passion and an interest and inspired Bane, and he was trying to remind him of how he lost and get his juices going. Like, oh, you're going after Batman? Then you better want it. Jeanette leans over to her lover. Does he know why they're following a guy that they don't like to hurt people that they don't know and aren't getting paid to hurt? And no, Deadshot doesn't. He just shoots things. And this seems like a throwaway moment, but I have a purpose for bringing it up. This is going to matter. Having wound up King Shark, they let him go, and singing his own made-up thing song, Shark charges toward the building. An alarm goes off, automated guns rise out of the ground, a laser field activates, and yes, mines explode. Shark goes flying, but he gets back up, ready for more. Bane orders the rest to follow, very carefully, in his wake. Scandal tells Knockout that she doesn't have to do this if she doesn't feel like it. But no, she will. The thought of violence is making her happy. As she starts smashing heads, Knockout remembers laughter and combat. She remembers blood and terror, the enemy voiding their bowels, robbing them of even their dying dignity. Then she picks up Scandal by the shoulders, and she remembers her. She laughs, even using her nickname for Scandal, highlighting that, yes, her memories are returning through violence. The Six make it through the defenses and capture longtime Batman foe, the Penguin. He does try to struggle against them, unwilling to be beaten by the rather unimpressive Secret Six. Bane has him tied to a chair, and then beats him for an hour. But the Penguin has been beaten his whole life. He's used to being treated like this. Jeanette is the first to protest their treatment of him, saying that this isn't right. Catman even joins her, saying that the Penguin won't be beaten into their plan. Bane goes to plan B. He turns to King Shark and Ragdoll, who is dangling an actual penguin over Shark's mouth. Quote, "Bet I can't eat just one," unquote. Then the Penguin cracks. Okay, fine, he's in. Whatever this is, just don't hurt his babies. There will be revenge, though. He promises that, but for now he's in. Great, Catman replies. They're going to need all of his intel on the Bat Kids. And the Penguin is like, dudes, for real? That's easy. This isn't even worth this assault. But no, that's not all. He's being drafted. Welcome to the Secret Six. So I like Bane's basic plan here. The greatest strength of the Bat family does rely upon them helping, trusting, and supporting each other, so targeting that ability is clever. I believe that author Scott Snyder did something similar during his Death of the Family arc during his Batman run, but it was Joker as the main antagonist there and not Bane. So, I'm just saying there is some merit to this idea, but I also question the execution of it. The team targets the Penguin for intel and manpower, but he's very much a reluctant party. But it's not like he needed to be. The Penguin has no love for Batman either, so why didn't the Six just approach him as allies? Or pay him for the information that they needed? My understanding is that the Penguin works in Gotham as a legitimate businessman and does crime on the side. So why not use that cash and his dislike of Batman to your advantage, Bane? Come on. This guy literally swears vengeance on the Six, so pissing him off probably isn't going to help. I do enjoy the Six's assault on the Penguin's house. It's all set up, really. Catman's comments about the defenses seem geared towards Batman's stealthy style entrance, and you can see that. Putting the building in a basin far from the tree line either forces Batman to approach on foot or by air, both of which would telegraph his arrival. Not that I think any of us are buying that Batman couldn't get in there, but the world building and the thought process behind it works, which is great to see. I love King Shark's puppy dog style enthusiasm for being there. This is twice now that Shark has just zoned out before committing himself to a dangerous job. Once for hell, and now once for the minefield. Not that Shark seems to care. He relishes any attention that the Six give him and enjoys his special mission. Sure, for anyone else this would be a suicide mission, but not for Shark. I love his theme song. I love the threat of him eating the Penguin's penguins. I just love this guy. Knockout, regaining some of her memory through violence, is a great character touch. Knockout was raised on Apocalypse, a world of war and death, and violence is recreation to her. Having her connect to her true self while fighting is clever, and I'm glad to see her recall Scandal, even if she isn't fully recovered. I don't like that violence is her core, though, because I feel like she would have had ample opportunity to fight while in hell. Was she somehow restrained while she was there, or imprisoned? Her speech to Scandal earlier seemed to imply a freedom of movement. If the demons of hell came after her when she felt safe, that meant that she could find places to feel safe in. So why couldn't Knockout battle her captors? Simply put, we'll never know. We're never shown anything of her time in hell, so we can't confirm or deny any kind of experience that Knockout had. This writing technique is fairly common in comics or books. Rather than showing us exactly what Knockout experienced, it's left open to our imaginations. We can imagine whatever we want, as horrible as we want it to be, because Simone doesn't establish what actually happened. Normally, I think this is a great technique, but here it actually works against Simone. Rather than imagining Knockout suffering in hell, I see her fighting endlessly in hell, like Bane promised to do. Hell, honestly, should be as fun for Knockout as it was for Parademon, who clearly was enjoying himself. So, you win some plot points, you lose some plot points. I'm also not exactly sure why Bane beat on the Penguin. He doesn't make his pitch to the Penguin turn him down, and then he attempts to beat him into submission. No, he just immediately ties him up and then beats him up. Of course the Penguin swears vengeance, because that was a stupid move. Especially since that they're drafting him anyways. Why piss him off and make an enemy that you're going to be dragging around with you on your ultimate anti-Batman plan? I get that Bane is on this alpha male, I'm a general, a conqueror kick, but this is the type of man who will not break under you. if someone like Batman can't stop the Penguin, then you sure as heck ain't gonna stop him either, Bane. I do get a pretty good kick out of the Penguin's initial reaction to the Six. He says that he knows all about them and how he isn't scared. I think that Simone is implying that the Six's reputations really have suffered from their string of botched jobs. I mean, the Six haven't accomplished a job and not killed their employer in this whole series. They've kind of become a joke in the supervillain community, and I love that Simone is bringing those consequences to roost here. We haven't seen an established villain interact with the Six for a while, so this is a good peek into the broader DCU, too. The Six have their mission, they have their intel, and their eighth, however reluctant, member. They're as ready as they can be. Time to do the job. But before we do that, issue 16 bounces us back in time by 16 hours. We're joining Spencer and Bane after their first time together. Spencer is quite amazed at how gentle Bane was as they made love. And of course he was gentle, he says. Bane states that she is petite, with little muscle mass, and he didn't wish to harm her. The pair gaze at each other for a moment, then Bane turns away and begins to dress. The emotions that he's feeling, they make him want to protect her. Spencer suggests that this is a good thing, right? It means that he cares about her. But, to Bane, this is a bad thing. Spencer now represents a potential avenue that his enemies may strike at him through. But he has a plan to deal with that. Bane declares that in 24 hours, either he and his associates will be dead, or Spencer will be the new Empress of Gotham City. Because if Bane can be hurt by these emotions, then so can the Bat. The scene is one part character study, one part catch-up. Bane succinctly tells us what he's about to do and why he's going to do it. This is Simone catching any new readers up in like a page. The fact that she can do this while highlighting his relationship with Spencer is amazing. It's cute and sweet, and I love all of that, but there's a hitch. Bane is shown to have his new Venom implants here, which were installed between issues 34 and 35. 34 ended Bane's date by having him and Spencer leave the carnival, go to her place, and do the deed. Bane did not have his implants during that scene. But this scene seems to imply that this is just after their first time having sex. Otherwise, Spencer wouldn't have been surprised by how gentle Bane is. So, either Bane and Spencer left the carnival, stopped at Bane's Black Ops doctor to have those implants installed, then they had sex and this scene happened, or they left the carnival, never had sex, Bane got his implants, and then they had sex at a later date. Or we've still got the totally obvious explanation that this is just an error. It's totally possible that Calafiore drew the implants without thinking, or if he was directed to draw them in the script itself, Simone may have made the mistake. We've seen Simone make small continuity errors before, so it's totally possible either way. It's just one of those small things that stood out to me. The narrative then moves to Gotham City, where the Six are assembled in an old wharf-based warehouse. Bane restates the plan for anyone who missed it. Their targets are Red Robin, Batgirl, Catwoman, and Huntress. And Catman stops him there. Hold up, didn't we cover this crap? No, Huntress. Well, Commissioner Gordon is out of the country at the moment, and they need a fourth target, so instead, Bane puts up a picture of Azrael. They'll fight and or kill him instead. So they're not targeting Robin? He was on the list in the last issue, and we dealt with this Huntress thing then as well. But I think that Simone is re-establishing Catman's fondness for Huntress, as she's going to play a larger role in this issue later on the line. I don't know why Robin isn't on the list anymore, as he's still alive and definitely a thing, so there's no reason I can think of for his omission. Before they get to work in earnest, a sound comes from a nearby... Before they can get to work in earnest, a sound coming from a nearby storage container draws everyone's attention. The Six investigate, discovering a homeless family squatting in it. If Bane sighed in aggravation, then he would sigh in aggravation here. He narrates that plans involving others are flawed, because humans are flawed. Deadshot was supposed to clear the building, and he clearly did a subpar job. The story is interrupted here by a pair of interludes, giving us a look at the team before all of this goes down. I'm going to finish with this bit of plot first. I just wanted you all to be aware that Simone does not present the story in the manner that I'm going to present it. The team now discusses how to handle this discovery. Bane and Deadshot know that the homeless peeps need to die in order to maintain their cover. Scandal and Catman disagree. These people are harmless, they're just trying to survive. They'll keep their mouths shut. But then Jeanette smells the air, and this discussion is pointless. They are discovered. Catman confirms this, checking a window. Yeah, they got company. Which is when the Penguin reveals that he has a subcutaneous transmitter implanted, and he's alerted, well, everyone. And Bane is pissed. The Penguin is chained to a chair. Why even allow the Six to get this far in their plan if he was just going to betray them? Well, the Penguin states that he doesn't care for Batman either. But he also thought that Bane might have a plan, and given that these homeless people are the only thing that was needed to throw all of that into chaos, that's clearly not the case. With the illusion of a plan gone, Penguin is just a private citizen who's been kidnapped by known supercriminals, and he wants nothing to do with this. So, he gave everyone a heads up. And I do mean everyone. We turn the page and a veritable army of superheroes stand outside the warehouse. I count 17 superfolks, including the Birds of Prey, the Teen Titans, and at least some of the Justice Society. Helming the megaphone is Huntress, who gives the Six a minute to surrender. This isn't good for them. One of the heroes, Booster Gold, is so confident that the Six are losers that he can take them by himself. Huntress reminds him that 2 of the 6 can overpower Superboy, Jeanette has downed Wonder Woman before, and Bane broke Batman's back. And when they were united, this is the team responsible for the destruction of the society. Maybe once upon a time they were jokes. But, quote, now that joke is over, unquote. Sounds like a good time to cover our interludes, huh? Sure does. Catman, Deadshot, and Ragdoll are, I think, in Gotham doing one last job before the mission. They're at the docks. Deadshot stands by and smokes while Catman and Ragdoll are fishing. Deadshot asks Catman if they're really going to go through with Bane's plan. Catman says that they should. It's time to put up or shut up, you know? Deadshot claims the Catmobile when Catman dies then, specifically so that he can use it for target practice. Which is when Ragdoll finally tells them to shut the hell up. These two would rather kill each other than just admit that they're friends and that they care for each other. Just freaking admit it and be done with it, God. They say that he's the crazy one. The trio figure that they've left their bait to soak long enough. Time to reel it up. This is when we notice the rope that hangs in the water between Catman and Ragdoll. Deadshot reels the rope, pulling up a fat mob boss stereotype. He's sputtering and angry, threatening them with revenge, but this isn't personal. This guy had his rival's daughter kidnapped, but then the job went wrong and the girl was killed. So now they're being paid to feed him to the sharks. The mobster is confused by this. There ain't no sharks in this body of water. King Shark then leaps from the water, engulfing the man's legs in one bite. The men help Shark climb onto the docks, Deadshot asking if he thinks they can trust the Penguin. Catman isn't sure, but the Penguin doesn't like the Batman either. Well, we know how that went down, and Simone sets the scene directly before the Penguin's betrayal, using it to highlight the team's sensible distrust of him and to establish that the Penguin could betray them. Thus, when he does, it doesn't come out of left field for us. It's almost expected. The second interlude is Scandal's. She and Jeanette are at the Sacred Heart Hospital. Scandal is pretty nervous, but Jeanette knows that she can do this. She kisses her on the cheek, then Scandal enters the room. Liana rests in a hospital bed, her friends from Superior's by her side. They're glad to see Scandal. Liana has been asking after her. She pulls off her bandages, wanting to finally see Scandal again. Which is when Scandal explains, as best she can, about Knockout. How she went away for a while and just recently returned. Knockout enters the room here, more nervous about meeting Liana than any of her time spent as a warrior on Apocalypse. As Scandal is saying all of this, Liana's heart sinks. She's being dumped, isn't she? But no. Scandal quickly explains that she doesn't want to lose either of them. She actually wants to marry them both. Wow. Back in Gotham, the situation continues to deteriorate. The Six use the family that they found as hostages, asking for time so that they can put together their demands. So, the question now becomes, what the no swearing are the Six supposed to do now? What can they do? Bane, Deadshot, and Shark are willing to kill the hostages to prove how serious they are about this. Scandal still opposes that idea, which is when Jeanette talks to her. They've both been to prison before, and Jeanette will not go again if she can help it. Time to face facts, Scandal. They aren't good people. They are the bad guys here. This is where Simone puts in Scandal's interlude, really just hitting us over the hearts with the tenderness of this moment. Here you have Scandal having saved her one girlfriend from hell, having saved her other girlfriend from a psychopathic stalker, finally proposing to them both, hopefully about to bring happiness into all of their lives, and that happiness is snatched right out from under her feet. Simone, why? Outside, more heroes arrive, including Green Lantern John Stewart, 2 Batmans, and Robin. While Huntress could probably trust Blake to keep his word and not harm those people, she doesn't know about the rest of them. And how will Bane react to seeing not just Batman, but 2 Batman? This would be a slaughter if it came to a straight fight. So, she sneaks into the warehouse, offering herself as a hostage in exchange for the family. Catman instantly agrees. And so does Bane. But before the family goes, Bane gives the young girl a knife, telling her to keep it inside of her stuffed bear. That way, she'll always have an edge on her enemies. Scandal then calls Amanda Waller, looking for a way out, but that's a no-go. Ragdoll calls Black Alice, but she cannot or will not help them. She wishes them luck and says goodbye. Huntress tries to talk Catman into surrendering once again, but he won't do it. Knockout and Scandal hug, Knockout promising never to be separated from her again. Bane is starting to see how bad this is. And then things get worse. Superman, Supergirl, Superboy, Steel, and the Red Tornado have all shown up as well. Jeanette freaks at this, unwilling to be caged again. She grabs Huntress, ready to kill her, so Catman prepares to kill her. So then Deadshot prepares to kill him. So then Scandal prepares to kill him. And then Ragdoll just says no to all of it. He removes his bandages and his hair, so it's not attached to his head. It's, I don't know, but it's somehow attached to his bandages. I don't know how that works. Anyway, Ragdoll says that this group has one redeeming trait amongst them, and that's that they don't know how to surrender. Bane agrees, and he even offers an aid. He holds out his hand, revealing 7 vials of venom. If they are to be taken down, then they should go as gods. And they do. The 6 take the venom, explode out through the wall of the warehouse, and start fighting. Huntress narrates during the fight. While the superheroes outnumber the 6, there were way too many of them, making it easy for the 6 to take some of them down. None of them are killed, but they're injured, and once blood is drawn, Deadshot shooting a hero in the arm, the heroes stop playing. Green Lantern Stewart downs Deadshot, Black Canary downs Jeanette before she can begin screaming, and finally, after enough time, all of the 6 lie unconscious on the ground. The heroes have beaten the bad guys. After all, they're the heroes. They always win. The 6 are defeated, then chained, and a day later, we follow Bane as he's being transported to his new prison home. He narrates this, explaining that any plan involving others is inherently flawed, because people are inherently flawed. He will miss the Six and their antics. He'll miss Scandal and Spencer. But Bane cannot be what he needs to be when he's with them. So he planned to free himself of them. With the Six arrested and separated, Bane is free from all emotional attachments. Then he breaks free of his restraints. He is Bane. He has a kingdom to win. Let's talk about the elephant in the room first. This whole story has been about Bane manipulating the Six into a conflict that they cannot win in order to free himself of them. Which makes a lot of Bane's move in this story make more sense. Bane continued suggesting Huntress in order to piss Catman off, hoping that he would rebel and act out. Bane beat the Penguin in order to piss him off, knowing that he would be petty enough to rat them out to the superheroes. Bane had Deadshot search the warehouse because he knew that he, out of all of the Six, would slack off, revealing the homeless family that I bet Bane knew about beforehand in order to draw the Six into conflict with each other over how to proceed. Every decision that Bane makes here was designed to force the Six into an ever-tightened corner, leaving them with no choice but venom, a confrontation, and incarceration. While this plan is heartbreaking to me, I still like it. Bane is acting upon character growth that was influenced by recent events in a manner fitting to his character. Is it tragic? Sure it is. But that doesn't mean that we can't enjoy it. I also really like the irony here of Bane realizing that Batman's greatest strength is drawn from his family, so in order to beat him, Bane devises a plan to rid Batman of it. Ultimately, Bane doesn't trust the Six in the way that Batman trusts his family, and that's a goram tragedy right there. Because the skill and the power set of the Six is really top-notch, actually. With a good plan and some solid motivation, I think that the Six really could take the Bat family. Oh, and I mean, we would have to ignore the Bat family's plot armor. That would need to be removed, but still, if we're just looking at a straight-up fight, I actually think that the Six could do this. I would like to point out that Jeanette tries twice to point out herself that this whole plan is, well, slightly off, which is a bit strange as Jeanette hasn't typically been the team's strategist, but it does fit her role as a businesswoman. Remember, she ran her own casino out in Vegas. Remember when the team split during Cats in the Cradle? Jeanette stayed with Bane in order to make money. Being on the Six is a job for her. So when she looks at this plan and sees nothing of monetary gain, she starts to get a little concerned. It doesn't help, as her teammates are less than interested in sussing out Bane's motivation, though. I like the two interludes that we get. They're both some prime Gail Simone writing, working in lots of emotional depth and comedy into really short scenes. I wish that we had more time, any time really, to explore what will happen between Scandal, Knockout, and Liana. Both women seem pleased to be proposed to, and I hope that they are. Given that Scandal and Knockout are arrested like 12 hours after that proposal, my heart breaks for Liana. Like, 90% of Liana's story in this book has been my heart breaking for her, damn it. So this all happened very fast. Despite its larger narrative potential, The Darkest House ignores all of that potential. Despite its larger narrative potential, The Darkest House ignores all of it so that the Six can save Liana and fall to Bane's manipulation. All of the major story notes line up, creating a solid through line to close out this book. And I can't help but think that this wasn't the plan. I don't know when Gail Simone was informed of the decision to cancel the Secret Six. Nowadays, a lot of authors don't learn that their book is canceled until the company announces it to the audience, as has recently happened with Jeremy Whitley on Marvel's Future Foundation ongoing series, or Dan Kibblesmith's Loki. But it's possible that Simone was told during production of The Darkest House, which I think was the case. Much like with Reptile Brain, I think that The Darkest House was originally planned to be a longer arc. You don't introduce stuff like a prophecy and Hell's monarchy only to gloss over those things. Nor do you set up a confrontation with the boss of Hell just to have that character let the other characters go. The Darkest House ends very anticlimactically. And while issue 34, in which the team saves Liana, reads well, it really reads like two different issues. Saving Liana and Bane's date with Spencer smushed into one. So yeah, I think that Simone and Calafiore were working on The Darkest House, were informed of the upcoming cancellation, and Simone reacted quickly. She identified whatever plot elements she wanted to tell and what she needed to tell, and built our final 2 issues here. Really, the only things that were necessary to happen was to save Liana, have Bane go on the date, have Bane plan this plan, have Scandal propose to her girlfriends, and then the book closes out. This is totally speculation and based on nothing more than my own feelings regarding this string of issues. And still, even saying that, these are good comics. Even if I'm right, Simone learned from how the reptile brain went down and put those lessons to good work here. Which basically closes out the Secret Six. We're done. 59 total issues, 2 DC line-wide events, 3 single-issue crossovers, and 19 total episodes here, plus 1 arc from a totally different book, and we have collected everything that I deem necessary for a Secret Six collection. DC is a company that really revels in its villainous side. If you look over their history for the past 30 or so years, you'll find a whole mess of miniseries, crossovers, or events that focus on the bad guys. And yes, DC handles their villains differently from Marvel, who have their own plethora of interesting villains. Marvel tends to try to redeem their villains, putting them on a hero's path, even if that change doesn't last for long. Magneto has been an X-Man several times, Doctor Doom has saved all of reality before, Dr. Octopus did a spin as the superior Spider-Man. DC doesn't really do that, though. Their bad guys are generally bad guys. And even when DC gives them a narrative focus, they tend to be bad guys the whole time. Which is absolutely true of the Secret Six here. Gail Simone did, quite frankly, an amazing job telling the Six's story. Scandal, Ragdoll, Jeanette, and essentially Catman are all new characters, while Deadshot and Bane are really the only 2 established ones. Creating roughly 4 of the main cast from nothing is pretty impressive, even more so given that the Six ran for 36 issues. It isn't an easy thing to launch a comic with a popular, well-known cast and have it run for 3 consecutive years, much less the haphazard start and stop kind of existence that the Six have gone through really since Villains United. Comic fans are very picky and very fickle, and it's kind of amazing that this book lasted as long as it did. Smart ties to the DCU helped this. While the new characters were unfamiliar, they were tied to concepts that DC fans would be familiar with. Having Scandal be the daughter of Vandal Savage, Ragdoll the son of the OG Ragdoll, and making Jeanette a Banshee help establish the cast as a part of the broader DC. Rebuilding Catman as an aspiring hero immediately endears him to us as well, making us sympathetic to his actions. I think that Scandal and Catman get the most focus as characters throughout the run. We see Scandal emotionally hurt when Lawton slept with Knockout, but she forgave him, and Knockout. She was backed up by the Six against her father, they helped her get revenge against Pistolera, they've stood with her against Junior, Mr. Smith, Amanda Waller, and even after struggling with her in Skartaris and Hell, the Six stand with her. And she with them. The surrogate father-daughter relationship with Bane was perhaps the key to the door that is viewing the Six as a family. In their early missions, Scandal rarely participated, acting more as an intelligence officer than as a team member. But as the Six became more active and were forced to rely upon each other, she had to work with them, and those interactions led to them being more than just friends. I didn't bring it up during the string of episodes, but I think that Scandal might be DC's first lesbian character. The first one that I can remember getting press is Kate Kane, aka Batwoman, who debuted in the book 52, which would have occurred between Villains United and the Secret Six miniseries. And I love that Simone doesn't hide it. She doesn't force it into the book, though. Scandal doesn't just appear and talk about how much she loves women. No, Simone waits until there's an honest, genuine moment of relief between Scandal and Knockout seeing each other for the first time alone and safe at the end of Villains United before revealing that they're lovers. Simone works it in naturally, and if you couldn't guess, I love Scandal's rocky love life. Simone would later take to Twitter and reveal that both Jeanette and Catman were bi, but that's something that was never established in the comic itself, which really sucks. As an older comic fan, I'm of the mind that if it didn't happen in the comic, then it didn't happen. That's how reading things works. There's no Twitter add-on to a comic in order to flesh things out, and while Twitter does add a degree of interactability to creators that I like, I don't think of it as a supplement to the narrative. I do think that representation of non-white, non-cis characters is important, and I applaud Simone for putting it in where and when she could, though. We do see Jeanette and Catman in relationships, with Deadshot and Cheshire respectively, but those are both straight relationships. Perhaps if the book ran longer, new, non-straight relationships for those characters may have begun, but we have what we have, and we really have no way of knowing at this point. Having Scandal end the book in a polyamorous relationship is the weird thing for me. I grew up surrounded by people in monogamous relationships, and that was taught to me as the social norm. Having more than one partner weirds me out, I'll admit it. But so long as all parties are honest with each other about what they want, and they're willing to have respect for all of their partners, well, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to do that. It might not be for me, but that doesn't mean it can't work for other people. As a country, as a society, we'll never confront these kinds of inbuilt biases unless we're exposed to them. While lots of people dismiss comics as an art form, it's a great place to confront these kind of social issues, and I respect Simone for being willing to do so. Catman starts the book as my favorite character easily, but I have to admit, he doesn't end as my favorite character. I mean, I like Cats, I like that he turned his life around at the beginning of the story, and I like that he's trying to be better. This is a hero's journey, and I want to see him succeed. But then Catman goes through the events of Cats in the Cradle, and in a few ways, he never really quite recovers from it before the book ends. This could have been the perfect Marvel-type story where an animal-themed person with claws fights for what is right, but in less than ideal ways. Wolverine! Instead, Simone never glorifies Catman's actions, even when he's fighting on the sides of the angels. In fact, Wolverine's story is often about Wolverine needing to be less vicious, less animal, and more human. Catman's story, though, is about a man yearning to be a hero but constantly acting viciously, more animal and less human. Truthfully, Catman probably has more in common with Sabretooth by the end of the sixth than Wolverine. His friendships with Scandal and Deadshot are his greatest relationships in the books, but rather than encouraging him to be a better person, they enable his worst tendencies. Catman is ultimately a character who tried to be good, failed to do so, and then wallowed in it for the rest of the book. And maybe Simone would have turned this around given enough time, but again, we have what we have, and we won't get to see that. Ragdoll manages to get some incredibly subtle character work throughout the series, mostly in Unhinged and The Darkest House. I love Simone presenting Doll as this joke of a character at the beginning, when he actually isn't a joke at all. He is perhaps more broken than all of the others, hiding behind a mask and a personality that aren't really him. Given how traumatic Doll's childhood seemed to be, I really would have liked to have had a confrontation with his father. Like Scandal getting the chance to tell her father off, and stab him with chopsticks, I would have liked Ragdoll to have gotten a moment like that. We really end the book as he's making his greatest change, so it's disappointing that we don't get to see him heal completely. Jeanette is perhaps the least developed of the Simone originals. Despite an intriguing background and pretty cool power set, Jeanette's background is only really explored in Unhinged and Depths. She spends the rest of the book sleeping with Deadshot, prophesizing death that doesn't happen, and I think this is kind of ridiculous, disagreeing with Scandal, the very person who invited her into the Six. From practically the jump, every time that a choice came up, Jeanette sided against Scandal. Not that it bothered either of them. They're comfortable enough in their friendship that these kind of squabbles just don't matter. I would have loved to have seen more of Jeanette's past. After all, we still don't know how or when she and Scandal met. They both refer to being in the gulags, which were government-operated work camps in the Soviet Union from the 1930s to the 1950s, so what were they doing there? Despite the whole group being broken and weird, and having gone through some really terrible things, Jeanette's character suffers the most from traumatic experiences. We see her freak out several times during the confrontations, emotionally flashing back to her past and her death. So much of superhero comics is about people being strong and tough and putting up with all kinds of pain and death, but Jeanette's character handles it almost the most realistically with her panic attacks. Even if you survived having your head cut off, that would still mess with you, and I like that Simone works that into her character. Jeanette doesn't let this fear stop her, either, but I like her having a character with trauma. Deadshot is perhaps the most prolific character in the book, between him and Bane, at the time of this book's publication. Shot had a long run in the first Suicide Squad series, whereas Bane, to my very likely wrong knowledge, only really appeared in the Nightfall event. Now, that event was huge, which is why Bane is such a legendary character, but I doubt that he appeared in a meaningful way in every book. So, Deadshot walks into the Six the most fully formed, and Simone does nothing really to change him. She explores his character, sure, but she leaves Lawton as she found him. I read an interview between Simone and John Ostrander regarding Danse Macabre, and Simone brought up how important it was to her to write John's interpretation of Deadshot. But Ostrander said that he was enjoying reading and writing Simone's interpretation of Lawton, so even the authors acknowledge a difference in him. And for me, this will always be the Deadshot that I want. Someone who cares deeply for his friends and his family, but buries those emotions so deeply as to be missing them completely. Lawton constantly watched his teammates and did what he could for them, killing Pistolera for Scandal, threatening Black Alice's father's doctor, even if doing those things was the wrong thing to do. Bane was the only character that I came into the Six with any prior knowledge of. All of that knowledge, unfortunately, came from the 1997 movie Batman and Robin, which does Bane absolutely no favors. So his was the biggest reintroduction for me, and part of why I love him so much. Bane enters the Six as a man of honor, of compassion to those that he deems worthy of it, and of unrelenting strength when needed. He gives Junior no information on the Six, despite having just joined the team when he's tortured by her. He sees a kindred spirit in Scandal, both of them lacking a father figure, so he chooses to fill that role. But in doing so, Bane comes to care for her, and the Six. And we're so used to the Six defending each other and helping each other that his betrayal here at the end really hurts. But Bane has always remained distant and professional with most of the Six. Remember, he let the team go at the start of Cats in the Cradle when they wanted to follow Catman. If they won't follow his orders, then he doesn't need them. Bane's actions during Caution to the Wind are simply the most drastic version of that. And even then, I still like it. Bane gives nothing. Not even his heart to his friends. And then we've got the part-timers. Cheshire, Knockout, the Mad Hatter, Black Alice, Giganta, Dwarfstar, Lady Vic, and King Shark. Each one of them is unique and entertaining and adds new complications and problems to the team. Are they all standouts? No. Do I love them all? No. But I love that Simone was willing to experiment and play with the team's lineup. It allowed the book to explore the DCU more. I mean, just working Giganta and Dwarfstar into the book has spun me off into an all-new Atom collection, so nice job there. I obviously fell in love with the Mad Hatter and King Shark, both of whom are treated like strange jokes but are in truth really dangerous. Cheshire was always fun to have pop up, perhaps the most bloodthirsty villain that I feel like I've seen in DC's books. While Black Alice got the most storytime and character focus, I never really came to like her. She felt like a hanger-on, like the one person who shouldn't be there. And, to be fair, I feel like even Laurie came to that conclusion. She could have easily teleported into the warehouse, saved the Six, and then teleported out at the end. But she doesn't. Black Alice knows that the Six aren't good people. And the longer she stayed with them, the worse that she would have become. And while I don't like Black Alice a lot, I have to admit, this is the one thing that I like about her. So much of the Secret Six is about these characters seeing flaws or faults in themselves and failing to grow out of them. And then here you have Black Alice, a girl who shows up basically looking for money in order to cure her father, finds a way to cure her father, finds her soul at risk, and decides this isn't worth it. She can't do it. And so she leaves. She's the one character to achieve positive character growth in this entire story. And I kind of like that. The themes of surrogate family, acceptance, and forgiveness run throughout the Secret Six. It's totally endearing, and it makes me care for these sad, broken characters in a way that nearly no other DC book has. This group will never be heroes, but they'll never destroy the world, either. They want to survive, and be themselves, and be accepted for that. This still doesn't absolve them of their evil actions, but it does make you want to root for them. So much so that DC relaunched the Secret Six in 2014, roughly 3 years into their New 52 continuity. Now, the New 52 concept itself could be a whole episode of this podcast, but basically, DC totally rebooted its continuity, including everything that we just covered regarding the Secret Six. The new volume kept Gail Simone as author, while Ken Lashley, Dale Eaglesham, and Tom Derenick provided pencils. The book did feature Catman and Black Alice, but everyone else was new to the team. They even had a new Mockingbird manipulating them. But I'm not going to say anything more about that, as someday we'll be back around to talk about that volume. While I remember enjoying it in general, I also remember just not enjoying that volume as much as this one. I wanted a return to form, not something new and different, and I'm looking forward to exploring those emotions. But not for a while, cause sheesh. At 59 issues, this run beats out the Heroes Reborn streak of episodes by 2 issues, and I am ready to move the no swearing on. God, am I ready. I know the next few books that I want to talk about, but before I do that, I need to ask you folks, do you prefer these long, months-long deep dives, or the shorter stuff that I've done? I've heard from one of you, but I'd love to have more of a consensus. Looking at my collection, I have a lot of longer collections, and while I would like to talk about them, I don't want to spend like half a year talking about, Darkhawk. I'm kidding. I'd love to spend half a year talking about Darkhawk, but I kind of doubt that people want to hear me talk about Darkhawk for half a year. I'm toying with the idea of taking longer series and breaking them down into 12-issue chunks. Assuming I stick with 2 issues per episode, that means that we would have about 6 issues dedicated to any particular series, after which I would then do a few odd miniseries or one-shots or smaller series. If you have a preference, drop me a line at cbbreakdown@gmail.com, or, if you're nasty, swing by the Facebook page. I post images on the daily from whatever comics we're talking about in the show, and I love hearing from people. If you don't have a preference, that's cool. I'll just keep doing whatever the no swearing fuck I feel like. You can't see it, but I'm doing an enthusiastic thumbs up right now. So now what? What are we talking about next, Ben? Get off your self-indulgent high horse and get to the good stuff. Well, firstly, I'm taking next week off. Yeah, there will be no new episode next week. I knew that I wanted to talk about the characters, their arcs, and the themes of the book, but I also knew that I didn't have enough material to do a whole new episode here on the Secret Six. Unless 5-minute long episodes are your guys' thing. So I figured that I would just run this one a little long and give myself a moment to catch up. I work in retail and Black Friday has destroyed my production schedule. I am getting back on track and pushing through, but I still haven't been able to regain my lead. So, I'm taking a week off to play catch-up and begin production on our next string of episodes. I'm planning on doing a one-shot the week after next about, oddly enough, the new X-Men books. I am a huge X-Men geek. It's like 90% of my comic collection, but I also know that there are some really good X-Men podcasts out there, and I don't want to repeat what they're doing. But I'm so excited about what's been going on in the X-Men stuff and just so hungry for the new series that I want to talk about them a bit. I don't plan on writing a script for this one. I'm just going to have the books open before me and ad-lib it. Editing it is going to be a pain, I'm sure, but I'm just charged up to talk about them. After that, I want to get into Grant Morrison's Marvel Boy miniseries from 2000, I want to get into Neil Gaiman's The Eternals from 2007, and go into a book that I've been wanting to reread for months now, Marvel's Maverick ongoing series from 1997. Otherwise, enjoy your week, folks. You'll hear from me again on December 19th. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.